webinar, and it's in a webinar form rather than a regular Zoom meeting because it allows for more participants. So in case anybody's wondering, that's why we're doing it this way. This is a county commission forum for District 3. We've invited both of the candidates, and one is here with us. The other candidate, Joel Stevenson, has not responded. We have sent emails, a letter by regular mail and telephone, and have had no response. And league rules do allow us to go forward even if there is only one candidate. If a candidate's not able to attend, they can send a representative or have a representative participate and make an opening statement and a closing statement that the candidate prepares. And Mr. Stevenson was advised about that policy, but we have not heard from him. So we're going to go forward with the remaining candidate, who is Rebecca Samulski. Record. I want to let everybody know that we are recording this, so it'll be available later if people want to go back and review it, or if you know someone who wasn't able to participate tonight, they can review it, and the link will be on our Facebook page. Also, before we begin, I want to let everyone know that on October the 10th at 10 a.m., there will be a Zoom meeting of the League of Women Voters, one of our regular meetings, but it will be virtual. And we're having County Clerk Kim Purcell come and talk about all the procedures that govern elections and how her office is going to be operating during this election season. So people can participate and ask questions. Again, that's Saturday, October 10th at 10 a.m. And the link for that will also be on our Facebook page. I do want to mention the fact that with some issues possible about the mail this year, everyone should return their ballot as soon as possible. They're supposed to be mailed the week of October 12th. And we suggest that if you don't receive it by a week later or maybe 10 days later, call the clerk's office to make sure that they've mailed the ballot to you. We all know our mail goes to Albuquerque and then comes back. So there are delays, and time will be important this year. There will be drop boxes in each town and in Toyoc. Today's paper actually had a sidebar giving all the details about where those drop boxes are in the towns. So I urge everyone to take advantage of them if you can. If you want more information, you can call the clerk's office, or you can go online. Montezuma County Elections, if you type that in, it will come up, and there's all kinds of information on that site. Also, before we get down to the business at hand, I'd like to talk a little bit about the League of Women Voters, which we always do when we have forums. This year, we're proud to say that we're 100 years old. We actually became an organization before women got the right to vote, because the organizers of women's suffrage believed that the vote was going to be granted soon, and they wanted to be prepared to help women study the issues and learn how to be full participants in elections. For those of you who don't know it, the current president of the State League of Women Voters is actually a Cortez resident, Karen Sheik, and we're all proud of that. And it might not have been possible but for modern technology, because it's very difficult to live in this part of the state and have to travel to Denver for many, many meetings, which is what a league president has to do ordinarily. The Montezuma County League is part of the National and State League, and we follow their rules, just like any organization that's part of a national group that has rules. We're governed by those rules, like the American Legion or the Elks or Kiwanis. We follow those rules that are sent down to us from the state and from the National League. The policy about candidate forums is if there is a race in which only one candidate can appear, we still go forward with the forum, and the candidate who's unable to appear can have a representative participate, and they get to make an opening statement and a closing statement for 2 minutes prepared by the candidate. They don't get to ask questions. We have not heard from Mr. Stevenson or from a representative. So tonight we only have Rebecca Samulski as a candidate. I think I mentioned this event's being recorded in case anybody wondered about that. Candidates are allowed 2 minutes for an opening and closing statement. That's been our policy for a long time, and 1 minute to answer questions. And we have a timekeeper, Betty Janes, will notify the candidate at 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and then there will be a red stop. So, Rebecca, you know those rules, right? Let me speak to questions. There may not be time for everyone's question to be asked. If you have a question and you've not participated in this kind of event before, the way you submit a question is by pressing on the chat button at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see that at the bottom of your screen, move your cursor to the bottom of the screen and it should show up. Then you click on all panelists and type your question under message here. Questions always are of the nature that they can be addressed to every candidate for an office. So that means it can't be a personal kind of question that would be directed only to one person. They should be so that if there were more than one candidate, all candidates would answer the same question. Also, we won't ask any questions that don't cover areas over which the county commission has authority. So for example, if you have a question of something related to the federal government, to a school district, to one of the towns, if the commission has no authority over that particular entity, we won't ask the question unless it somehow intertwines with what the commission does. All right, we're going to go ahead and start. And Rebecca, the first thing we're going to do is ask you to tell us what experience do you have that would make you a good county commissioner?
Is this my 2 minute one?
This is your 2 minutes. You can talk about yourself and your experience.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. Thanks to the League of Women Voters of Montezuma County and to the State League of Women Voters for helping to set up on the technology side too, so that I can share a little bit more about my background and answer your questions tonight. I have a lot of different experience bringing people together around complex issues in Montezuma County. Some of you may know me from wildfire preparedness work. I've also done watershed protection, worked on complex issues of homelessness, economic development, county land use planning, and long-range visioning right here in Montezuma County. I live here, grew up here in Montezuma County, and I live here with my husband and my 2 sons in the home that I helped my parents build. And I really want to keep this place a special place for them to grow up in. I'm really excited to be here and to be able to share a little bit more with you guys. I've thought about running for county commissioner for quite some time. After getting my anthropology degree and realizing just how much of an impact politics can have on our lives, I went and got a master's degree in political science. I didn't go very far. I actually did it from right here in Montezuma County. And this just feels like the right time. I've been watching little changes all around me, and observing some county commissioners meetings, and just feel like we've been lacking some clear direction. And I can't stand by any longer, as I feel like growth runs amok in our community. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Rebecca, we have a comment that says you're breaking up a bit. I think the reason is because you told us you got a notice that your internet may be acting up a little bit. Is that right?
That was a while ago. I think it's good right now. I haven't gotten any warnings. So unless you were hearing it, I think that was earlier.
All right, thank you. Okay, what are the biggest challenges facing the county, and what solutions do you propose? 1 minute for this.
Well, we're going to be looking at some real financial struggles, I believe, moving forward. We already are. We're dealing with a CO2 bus cycle, and looking at public budget cuts at the same time that needs are sky high. And I think the only way to deal with those kinds of issues is to come together as a community and use the assets that we have right here. You know, not try to recreate what people are doing in other counties, but rather let's use the resources that we have here, the skill sets that we would have within Montezuma County, and come up with creative solutions to the challenges we face. So first thing is really working on trying to keep the services that we have right now. I will work with staff and with the public to try to make that happen.
All right. What do you think about the current efforts to rezone parts of the county to allow smaller lots for residences?
I've been very concerned about the land use policy and practice in our community. It's something that I'm passionate about. I feel like the plan isn't to rezone. The plan is actually the current proposed change. One of them is to add a 1 to 3 acre zoning possibility. That doesn't mean that the commissioners are rezoning anywhere. It would just open up that opportunity. And there are already places in our county where that opportunity exists. So I don't see that particular change having much negative or positive impact either way. I think it's looking for a quick solution. And there's much bigger challenges to look at with our land use code. I think we need to focus on more of a long-range vision for what are the things in our community that we want to keep here, and how can we help accomplish that through policy and enforcement, which means probably not a lot of more policy.
Okay, sort of a follow-up question to that. If there were those kinds of developments on smaller lots, so that there would be more density, what would be the impact on infrastructure improvements that might be needed?
Well, I mean, that's the key to figuring out where do smaller zones make sense, is where is the infrastructure available and where isn't it? It really should be a mapping exercise, and not necessarily where is it available, but where does it make sense to make it available if it's not right now. There's some things that we can extend rather easily or make, you know, bolster the infrastructure, and other things that's like, well, we're not making any more water. In fact, it looks like we're having less and less water. So paying attention to where things go is really important. I feel like I missed part of that question.
What infrastructure might the county have to provide for that? For those kinds of changes?
Roads and water and making sure to watch over our septic systems. But that is all already required in the standards of the code, and we should be making sure that development is paying for itself.
Okay. What do commissioners need to know about water resources, including the Dolores River, when making decisions about land use?
I think we need to spend more time actually sitting down and talking with the water resource managers. I was really surprised to hear our commissioners saying that when they visited with Town of Mancos Board, I think early last week or the week before that, that they were surprised to hear what some of the water resource issues were in Mancos. And that surprised me that they were surprised, because I think we all know that there's water shortages. And we need to not only know, how many taps do you have available, but what are the size of the lines and where can you get those to? And it's not, and are there things where it makes sense? We've got some weird restrictions, service areas with water around our municipalities, between the rural water companies and the municipal service areas, that actually make annexation challenging and make it hard to do growth in certain areas. And the county can lean on some of that and try to figure out how to resolve some of those concerns.
All right, sort of continuing along this vein. As a commissioner, what would you do to ensure that current zoning restrictions are enforced along the Dolores River?
Enforcement has always been the biggest problem with everything in our code. When I worked with the county 15 years ago in the land use department, and it seems like everything that's been whittled away from our land use code has been because it was not able to be enforced or was not consistently implemented. And I don't think that more enforcement is going to be an easy path forward. We don't have the resources to add people for that. And so I think we need to find more ways to inform people about what the actual rules are. Have trainings with our realtors. Has the land use department ever presented to the Association of Realtors, the Board of Realtors, about what the regulations actually are? Is that information, is there any way to help pass that on to people? I think that education and incentives are actually going to go a lot further than enforcement and people fighting over issues.
Okay. Switching to a different topic now. How would you work to build better working relationship between the county, the city of Cortez, the towns of Dolores and Mancos, and the tribe?
I think we need to work on something together again. I was involved in the effort to get the Montezuma Community Economic Development Association off the ground, and was involved in that for quite a while when I worked for the county and for the city. And that was a great collaborative effort that had all of those folks at the table, as well as chambers and other representatives in the economic development community. And it was largely the county that killed that organization. They weren't happy with the way things were going, so they were kind of a little bit idle, and then said, well, we don't need to support this anymore. They're not doing anything. I'm probably a little garbled. I'm sorry, internet. Effort, I think economic development is a huge opportunity, and we'll talk more about that.
Okay, all right. I know you're having a little bit of trouble with your internet. We'll do the best we can. On a different topic, what do you think about the need for the county to have a Board of Health that is not made up of county commissioners, but is made up of health professionals?
I don't know what the current Board of Health is. Does the commission consider itself to be the Board of Health for the county?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I would think that health professionals and health managers know an awful lot more about health than my background would be, and I would suggest that's probably true of the other commissioners and commissioner candidates as well. So I think it's a very good idea to have a Board of Health that has knowledgeable people on it. It's also possible to combine that. It's not to say that commissioners shouldn't sit down with those health professionals and try to understand what the situation is. But I have been disappointed in the apparent, you shouldn't have those two fighting each other, that's for sure. I would love to figure out how to get past that.
Okay, this is a related question to that one. Tell us what you think about the county commissioner's position on the wearing of masks and other moves they've made during the COVID pandemic.
It's an interesting question. It's kind of on the lines of a personal question, but I guess if anybody could answer that, who's, I think that it hasn't helped lead our community in a positive direction. It's only added to the confusion, and it's really challenging with the situation that we're in with a novel virus with so much different information and misinformation, and whatever your opinion is about the information you're getting, you probably think it's the best, right? The truth is there's a lot that we don't know, and for commissioners to come out with against their own staff and against, I think that's what's been frustrating to me about it the most, is that it wasn't coming from what they were hearing from the specialists in our own community. They were coming up with opposing views to even their own staff. So I think we need to keep our kids at school and keep wearing masks if we have to do that.
All right, you mentioned economic development earlier. What kinds of economic development do you think could be successful in the county, and how could they be supported?
Okay, so we need more base industries. Our base industries right now are a little bit of tourism, CO2, as in the oil and gas industry. Agriculture makes the list, but as far as actually bringing in money, it's not huge. And then the other one is public services. Most people are employed through government and public services here, including the hospital and healthcare industry. It's the most diverse. Ours is the most diverse in our 5-county area, but we need to build our base industries. And I think forest agriculture is a huge opportunity, and other value-added agricultural products. Super excited to see what's happening with the cidery and macis. But I also think we can do more working with our public lands on tourism, not just to bring people here, but to keep them here and help them find ways to spend money in our community when they come through for the great landscape that we have.
All right, this is sort of related to that. How should the county plan to replace projected declining, I guess it's no longer projected, it is declining revenue from oil and gas activities? This is a perennial question for commissioners. What ideas do you have for that?
Addressing the shortfall because of the drop in CO2 revenues. I would start with sitting down with staff and working through our departments. I feel like every year the approach has been cut this percentage, what do you have to do to cut this percent? And I would like to look at, there might have to be some of that, but if we get some interdisciplinary work around that, instead of everybody independently do it, we might come up with really maintaining the most important services, and say, what ideas do you have to add revenue and gain efficiencies in the services you're providing? I think that's important as well with our staff. I think sales tax is going to be a reality, but I would hate for us to do a sales tax just based on one issue. We're covering one place we're having a shortfall. We need to do a sales tax that's based on our current needs to keep planning services, as well as our overall future needs.
What will you do to make yourself available if you're elected to the county commission?
I'm already trying to make myself available for people's questions. I'm hoping that there will be a space where I can have an office and have some regular office hours so that people can visit with me outside of having to come to a commissioner meeting or try to track me down somewhere. And then I also plan on staying involved and being involved in some of the things I'm already involved in, as well as I know an important role of the commissioners is to serve on boards in the community in a representative role of the county commission. And so I would look forward to being an involved member of some of the different, the boards that really need a county voice in our community. So I hope to be out there and listening to people. And I think we can also do more of that, those cross-pollinating kinds of meetings. Like, let's sit down with the town or the city or the tribe on a certain subject.
How would you frame a message of encouragement as a commissioner for the people of this county in this time?
Well, you know, we're bombarded by media from outside and just so much tension that's pulling people apart, driving people apart. But I don't think a lot of that's coming from here. It's reaching down to here. And I would say that we're all neighbors. We're all in this place together, no matter how long you've been here. And we have the opportunity to be stronger here than we are as a state or nation. And that just takes us working together, using the skills that we each have. I'm not going to be able to solve every issue this county has and just try to keep the services we've got going. But one of my skills is in bringing people together to solve complex issues, and I want to see more of that happening in our community. So if you have a particular issue of concern, get engaged in it. And the county can help, at least not discourage it as has happened occasionally in the past, but empower people to be active in our community.
All right, this is a different subject. Do you support the sheriff's office enforcing water law?
Oh, interesting question. I don't know who else would enforce it. They're kind of the only ones that enforce anything around here, but I think I just heard yesterday at the Board of County Commissioners meeting about the idea of having community resources kind of office that helps respond to things that we don't feel like we need to be sending out sheriff's deputies on every time or police department on every time. So it'd be interesting to consider something like that. I don't know enough about the water enforcement and who else might do that to have a good answer on that. So it'd be a good one to sit down with the Sheriff Nallen and find out his perspective on that.
Okay, we have a question. Let me see how I can frame this question. Please make a statement about the climate crisis as it relates to Southwest Colorado. Government predictions are pretty dire for this area in terms of vegetation changes and decreased precipitation. What is your long-range view on the climate crisis here? I'm not sure this is a direct county commission question, but I'll go ahead and let you try to answer it.
What can the county commission do about? Well, I hate how divisive the climate issues have become. And in some places, I'm just going to acknowledge that up front. I think the reality is we're at a drought now, and we're seeing a lot of trees dying right now, and the grass isn't as tall as we would like, and the snowpack line is not down as far as many of us remember that it usually used to be. And so what I think we need to do is spend more time out on the ground together, coming up with adaptive ways to work our land, to work in our forests, to try to get a little bit ahead of some of those changes, which we have not been doing a very good job in other arenas at getting ahead of things that we see coming. So, and I've been involved in the Dolores Watershed Resilient Forest Collaborative. Oh, which I'll talk about more when I can. Betty.
Okay. We have a question that was already answered in the very beginning, so I am not going to ask it again. We have not had any new questions. So I think we've reached the point, Rebecca, where you can make a 2-minute closing statement.
See one about a rail line. Do you want me to address that?
I didn't see one about a rail line.
Carolyn asked, have I had any thoughts about working to bring back a rail line?
Oh, okay. Well, that's...
All right, go ahead. I didn't
Okay.
see that.
Well, that's a fun one because it's like, yes, and it's very challenging to do, and it's definitely come up in Economic Development Association meetings, and I've had some very fun conversations with like Mitchell Toms about that, but real ones about how to do this. And I think if there is any big recovery funds kind of thing, that would be the kind of thing to have on the table ready to go to say we need this. But the reality is we probably ought to look at getting 2 lanes both ways on 491 first. Focus on that highway and see if we can get traffic moving there better. So that's a great question, Carolyn. That would make a huge difference, but we got to have some stuff to market in order to justify a rail line.
Okay. There's a question about, do you think employees of the county are fairly compensated?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm not sure what our employment, salaries are compared to other counties in the state exactly. My guess is we're on the lower end, but probably not the lowest. And I do know that employees haven't been given any kind of cost of living raises in about 6 years. At the same time, they've had at least one holiday taken away. And the sense that I get is that it's a hard place to be working for some folks right now. So I think that there's kind of 2 pieces there. There's compensation, it's the biggest budget item really is the staff. So it'd be very challenging to increase rates for people, but maybe there's other things that we can do to help make it a better place, a great place to work again. I'd love to hear from the staff what their ideas are for that too.
Right. Social issues and roads seem to compete for the county commissioner's attention. How do you weigh in on those issues?
There's a million things competing for county commissioner's attention every day, and there's a lot of just what is the issue du jour that comes through the gate that you have to deal with. What the county has not been doing a lot of is looking ahead and anticipating what other issues might come up and spearheading any kind of long-range visioning. And I think that's something that this is a really important time for us to start doing that. Very difficult time to do that at the same time as dealing with budget cuts. But I hope that I'm up for it if there's enough of a community that wants to get engaged in that. We have to deal with all of these things. And I would like to, in part, do that by encouraging the county and our staff to work with more partners to get more done on all of these issues, involve more of the community in solving our issues.
Okay. What do you think are the 3 major health issues that the public health people have to deal with in this county?
The 3 important items the health department does. What the health department, well, they implement an awful lot of state regulations. A lot of what the county does is we're an arm of the state. And so most of what our health department and our social services departments and veterans, and a lot of these are just implementing things that are already programs that exist. And so implementing all of those state programs is huge, from giving immunizations to checking septic tanks and looking at the kitchens in our restaurants. Those are all really important. So yeah, trying to call out 3 things. I don't know.
I think you just named 3 things.
I don't know if they're the 3 most important though, but there's 3 things that I think the public health department does.
It's sort of related to that. In the past, there's been some conversation among the commissioners at meetings, I believe, where the health department has had the opportunity to seek some grants for some special programs, and the county commission's been reluctant to do it because they didn't want them to have higher salaries than other people in the county have. Even though these clearly are people, the professional staff in the health department have more education and are required to know a great deal. What's your feeling about that? Whether it's fair for some departments to be able to have more money because they can get grants to be able to pay their employees or to hire a special employee?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think any way that we can bring money in to support our county staff is really important to support our services, not even just our staff. I mean, sometimes the county commissioners are asked to support other requests just via a signature and a recommendation for grants that are even from outside of ones that the county's applying for itself. And there's been a reluctance to do that, which is, I think it goes to a larger policy issue and concern about kind of just overtaxation and wasting money from the top. And some of these grants aren't even federal public funds. Some of these grants are foundation kinds of funds, private funds. So I think it's a very good idea to support our staff to look for grants. And I am all for bringing our federal dollars back home. If we have issues on the policy side, then we should go to the state and go to Washington and address those in that way, not throw away the money.
Okay, I think we've about reached our end time. So we're going to ask you to sum up in 2 minutes what you would like to tell us about yourself that would inspire us to elect you to the county commission.
Well, thank you for having me here tonight so much. It's been fun. I wasn't sure how that would go. Betty, I'm sorry you got the job of having to cut me off. I do want to just invite people to visit more with me now and in the future. I do have events on my website coming up. I'll be at the Harvest Fest. I'll be at the Home and Garden Show. You might run into me at the Ag Expo. So hopefully I'll see you somewhere on the campaign trail in addition to here. And I've got my eyes to that future where my kids can grow up and raise their kids in a place with the same opportunities that I've had. And I know at the same time that tough times come with tough choices. And we're going to have to deal with the immediate reality of the budget cuts that we talked about while our needs are sky high. And I feel like I'm ready to take on both those challenges. Didn't get to share a whole lot of my background and experience, but kind of got a lot that just weaves together to put me in the place that I'm in right now. And it's a little bit scary, but it's exciting. And I hope that the community will join me in trying to make Montezuma County stronger than we are as a state or nation right now, because I think we can.
All right. Thank you very much. And as always, we always thank candidates for being willing to put themselves out there to run for office, because it's important for our democracy to have people willing to do that. And I want to thank everyone who has signed on tonight as an attendee. We hope that this worked out all right for everyone. It was our first venture this way, and we hope we don't have to do too many more of them, but at least we've done one, so we should be able to do the next one better. Thank you so much for coming and joining.
I would like to make one special thanks to Amy. Amy is a 3-month-old puppy who we got about 4 days ago, and she's about 6 feet away from us, and she has been sleeping the whole time.
We weren't sure that was going to happen, so we're glad we didn't have puppy noises in the background. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Thanks, Becca.
Okay.
Good job.
Yeah.
Great. Good.